I went to St. George's University. I would say 95% of that room was Asian. And I thought, wow, look at that. They know exactly what they want their kids to study. We've glamorized and attached it to, you do certain things and it will give you a certain lifestyle, which means that you can have certain material, girls and all of that jazz. And I think that's what it is. Whereas the West Africans and the Asians, the key value pair there is not those careers. They're seeing it in the value in specific educational backgrounds. They're saying, yeah, do that. And we're going to make sure that we own the whole of Tooting High Street. And they do, by the way. And most of my peers in the city and stuff are African, West African. They're not Black Caribbean. And I'm kind of like, well, where are we in it? But if I go to the gym, they're all in there. Everyone's a PT and a fitness coach. Every Tom, Dick and Harry. Is university still worth it for Black boys in the United Kingdom?
My dad, obviously, he's been through the education system. He's got like 2 or 3 degrees. His thing was like, if you don't know what you want to do, it's actually a good place to go, because you're going to meet so many people. You're going to network, and then you'll probably end up finding out what you really want to do as you go through the university process.
Is university still worth it for Black boys in the United Kingdom? Now, I know you had some really interesting stats and insights around this, so please could you share it for our listeners?
Yeah, let me get some of these things out, because what inspired me to even want to kind of talk about this was essentially, I can't remember. This is maybe only a few months ago. It might have been my sister's birthday. I was at someone's birthday. And I was having dinner with my dad, and my cousin was there. And we just got into this whole argument about if it's worth it for Black boys to still go to university. And my cousin was of the argument that no, it's not worth it. He went to university, it didn't do nothing for him. He's not even working like in the same sector that he studied. Yeah, like what's the point? My dad was kind of agreeing, but my dad, obviously, he's been through the education system. He's got like 2 or 3 degrees. His thing was like, it's if you don't know what you want to do, it's actually a good place to go to, because you're going to meet so many people. You're going to network. And then you'll probably end up finding out what you really want to do as you go through the university process. My sister was like, nah, you boys need to go. Go to school, young man. Go to school. My sister's like, yeah, Black boys need to go. Yeah. Me, I'm more in the middle. Like, I'm more like my dad. I do think that there's a lot of benefit for Black boys, especially Black boys who come from the kind of places that we come from. I actually think that it opens our eyes up to a lot more. Because when you're from South London, some of us, there's people that I grew up with that never left London. They never left the borough.
That's true.
Some of them never been on holiday.
Yeah, but if you go to university like DMU, bro, you still ain't left.
Yeah.
Yes. You have not left the ends.
It does depend where you go.
Yeah, you lot are just, you know what I mean? The same shit, different location.
But I think that it's important, man. And I think a big part of it, but it might not even be the education. It might just be the network.
Yeah.
It might just be the opportunity to meet different types of people. So I do think that there is some merit to it. But no, let's go through some of these, right? So one interesting statistic is around the return on a degree. So as in like how much money you make, right? So the IFS did a study in 2020, right? For Black Caribbean men, yeah, at the age of, by the time they get to the age of 30, there was a 7% return on their degree. So that's in terms of how much they outlaid to get the degree.
Yeah.
Compared to, for Black African men, it was 15%. For Pakistani men, 36%, right? Which is crazy. However, our percentage, when I say our, I mean Black Caribbean men, is identical to white British men. It's quite interesting. I was surprised to even read that as I was kind of looking at this, right? Another interesting statistic was our entry rates, right? So Black Caribbean men, 46% entry rate compared to Black African, 66%. So there's a 20% difference there. And I think that I have this argument all the time about the differences in the way Caribbean families value education compared to West Africans.
Yes.
And I've always said that it's different because I think people that come from the Caribbean and they're here, I think they still value education. But I think our generation, who might have been born here, I think it's starting, when you mix the British and the Caribbean culture that we grew up in, something gets lost there. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it, but I do think something gets lost. And I think, whereas West Africans, like my friends, Nigerian, Ghanaian, that I've grown up with, their parents are, I will admit, they are more onto their backs in regards to education. I don't know if that's something you've seen.
That definitely. Yeah, there's a few things you touched on there. So, is university worth it? What you spoke about there in terms of it depends on how we define it, its effectiveness. So I think a really valid point in terms of monetary outlay, and that is important. So just to give our listeners context, I've been to university 3 times. I have degrees in sports science, physiotherapy, and I have a master's in computer science with data science. I'm going to be super transparent. I think it's a little bit overkill, right, having 3 degrees. I'm being so real here, right? But I'll say this: I think sports science was in terms of monetary career, a complete and utter waste of time. And each to their own, but I would not encourage young black boys to study this, okay? And the reason why I say this is because if we're thinking about, and the thing is, you don't think about this when you're young. But let's take now, you want to buy a home. Sports science, how it actually works is that they'll say to you, okay, well, you need to do an internship. So these are people that are graduates maybe, and they're having to do an internship. A lot of roles in sports want you to work for free or for minimum wage, for starters. A starting salary maybe as a sports scientist might be somewhere between, a lower league club, you're looking at 15, 16K. And then maybe if you're going to a more Premier League club, maybe you're looking at 24K or 27K. If it's like a Cat 1 club, because you're probably likely to end up starting in an academy as opposed to going straight into first team level. And even then, now you're trying to progress, it's quite difficult in a sense of, now they probably want you to have a UK SEA, strength and conditioning accredited badge. You might need to be really savvy now in terms of data analytics. So the demands of what they want of the job is so much. And on top of that, it's not like in finance or insurance or marketing where you go, right, I head to the big cities because that's where the jobs are. Mate, for you to get a job, you might need to be a sports scientist for bloody Motherwell to get your foot in the door. Well, I'm not trying to be funny, but most of us don't want to go and live in Motherwell. I'm just being honest. So jobs are far and few between. But in saying that, and your dad made a really good point, is about, and we just, how to navigate rooms. Yeah, so what university, even like my first, if you like, a lot of my good friends come from, I met at university, because I met like-minded individuals who were driven, who were ambitious, and to this day we are still connected. So lifelong friends is important. Now, I was always domesticated, and I'm sure you was too. Like, we come from Caribbean households where, when we went to school in year 7, had to iron shirts. Oh, I know guys at secondary school that in year 11 still weren't ironing shirts, and I was like, huh? You don't iron your shirts? I've been doing that since year 7, right? And then, you're reading a book in the kitchen whilst your parents are watching. So that's how I learned how to make like my stewed chicken, racky and saltfish and all those things. And like, we get hands on with domestic. But if you've been mother cuddled, then it's a great way for you to learn how to be independent. So when we say, is university still worth it? It depends on how what those markers are of success. Because the other thing about a lot of conversation nowadays, everything is about money.
Yeah.
How much do you earn? What man would you need to earn for you to date? All of that stuff, which is complete. Look, each to their own, but success can't always be defined by money. And we're not speaking as guys who are broke, by the way. Like, listen, I'm the landlord, I ain't the tenant. Let me make that clear here, right? So, but my point is that it's not just about that. It's about like your dad said, being able to network, being able to speak. Maybe it opens you up to different avenues, different industries that you are not aware of just because you've not been exposed to them. Because at that time, at 18 or 19, 20, 21, you're young. You're still very impressionable. You're still learning who you are and what you want to do. So when you look at the markers of success holistically, is university maybe still a good thing? Yes, absolutely. And depending on what situation you're coming from, there might be some people that are coming from really difficult, tough growing up conditions, and they find themselves in, I don't know, what's a really like country university, maybe Lincolnshire or York, or, you know, it's complete change of right. It's a fresh start for them. It, you know, Buckinghamshire, they're like, wow, this is nice, this is different. And they can start afresh and be who they want to be and find their feet. So not everything can be, signposted back to money. I think it is the main thing here.
But do you think, okay, that's an interesting point, because I do think that, and I don't know if you're aware of the podcast, Mr. Money Jar.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Excellent, by the way. Big up.
yeah, I watched one of his podcasts, and he was talking to the guy. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's like a financial coach or something. He was talking about, you know, black people. We're such heavy consumers. You know, we're in love with consumerism.
100%.
And that is why we tie so much of our success to what we have.
Yes.
Assets, having money, so on and so forth. So obviously a lot of black Caribbean boys are not going to university, or they're not even getting accepted at certain universities. But how much of that is them just, or us just being like, you know, why am I going to university when I can go do something else and make money straight away? Because there's a bit of delayed gratification when you go to university that you kind of have to be willing to accept.
Yeah, I think environment shapes a lot of this too. You touched upon the West African culture. It's not for discussion, bro. You're going to university. You're going to put that paper on this table. It's not for discussion. And I think a little bit of like that was, for me to a certain extent, there was an expectation, there was an unsigned document that you are going to go to university. You're going to deliver that 2-1 and above. That is what I want to see. That's what we want to see. You're not going to let us down. So I think in your environment definitely has a lot to say about that. And I think it depends on what you study as well. Healthcare degrees, you have to study, you have to go to university because you need to get your HCPC registration, for an example. You know, I have a physiotherapy business, and I really enjoyed this aspect of it. But in terms of being realistic for most people, unless you are a clinical lead, it's going to be very difficult for you to get on a ladder, for example, being able to borrow, because realistically, you know, I wrote here, this is not all about money, but 45, 50K isn't really going to cut it. That's the truth. Okay. And that forced me to pivot further into the whole computer science. And that was a game changer, because now you are like a National League or maybe a League 2 footballer. Yeah, you could talk on the levels now. You can play for sure. There's avenues and you can do life in your own terms, right? So environment shapes it, because West Africans, bro, they're not messing around Mickey Mouse sports science.
Yeah, they ain't doing
We ain't doing
I know it's funny you say that, because it's like,
they ain't doing all of that.
as I sit here and I think, right, like, I played football for like 15 years, bro. I was at professional club like my whole life. And there was one African physio. So as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, bro, I've never come across an African physio. I actually come across one Jamaican one, as in British Jamaican, and white man.
Make it make sense.
Yeah, no, you're right.
We did before. Yeah, if you're gonna do healthcare, you're gonna be a doctor, dentist, maybe a radiographer, but physio. Nah, it doesn't make sense. And I hear it. They're like, go to university, but you're gonna study engineering, computing, finance. So the guidance they give them also within that household is, you're not going to university just to give them the paper and good vibes. No, we're not doing that. You're going to university to study something specific, even though you don't want to do it, because they knew what the rewards were going to be. And I do respect that. The same as you spoke about there, if it's a Pakistani mem, the returns are much. The Asians as well, they don't mess about.
Yeah.
They don't mess up. I remember, in fact, a lecture in the early days of in year one of physiotherapy. I went to St. George's University, so that's like radiographers, doctors, everyone poured in one lecture hall. I can tell you what, I would say 95% of that room was Asian.
Okay.
95% of that room, honestly, was Asian, and I thought, wow, look at that. They know exactly what they want their kids to study. And the kids that were like black or maybe white, guess what? They were like maybe physiotherapy or something else. You went, that's why. That's exactly why. And also, like what you said, you spoke about that instant, they want it quick, the fast money. Yeah, I think that the young black Caribbean boys, football, the music, because not because they are necessarily aspiring to be a sportsman or a rapper, they're aspiring to have the lifestyle that they perceive that it brings. And for young boys in the community, if you ask them who Stormzy is, who Wilfred Zaha is, who Saka is, instantly. If you ask them, but do you know who Dawn Butler is, Lou? Did you know that Tim Campbell won The Apprentice? Who's that? Yeah. They might know D Forbes, maybe nowadays. Maybe.
Socials, though.
Yeah, social.
Bagging out social media.
So again, we've glamorized and attached it to certain. You do certain things, and it will give you a certain lifestyle, which means that you can have certain material, girls, and all of that jazz. And I think that's what it is. Whereas the West Africans and the Asians, they don't. The key value pair there is not those careers. They're seeing it in the value in specific educational backgrounds. Are saying, yeah, do that, and we're gonna make sure that we own the whole of Tooting High Street, and they do, by the way.
But like, why do you think, yeah, because this, when I go back to Jamaica, I think Jamaicans value education a lot, but like they're very serious about it.
University is good, don't they?
Yeah, like they're very serious about education at all levels, you know. So what is it about British Caribbeans, yeah, where, I'm not saying that it changes, but something shifts because West Africans seem to maintain that level of importance for education, whereas I'm not saying that British Caribbean people don't value education, but if we just look at the numbers, and then also, I always think the stats are one thing, but another thing you got to try and do is like look at what you're actually seeing as well. And if you look at the numbers, and then we look at what we're seeing, you don't see much Black Caribbean boys, you know, at that university level. But what is it? Because culturally we don't value education? Because I don't think that. Like, I think we do value education, but there's something going amiss here. I've got a few theories, but I'd like to know what you think.
Yeah, I think is it right to say that we've really adopted Western values? Is that right to say? I think that when we was growing up, like church was a big thing, and you don't, you know, it's okay to have whatever faith you're from. That's fine, but I think the principle was there was faith, and there was a sense of community, and there was certain things that I see were the done thing, you know, rice and peas and chicken as on a Sunday, you know, you get together, you have dinner, and a lot of those values are gone. No, people don't place the same emphasis and respect on those nowadays, and I think, why is that? Some of it might be due to the decision making of Caribbean men. That I think they tend to do more interracial dating than, I'm being honest, than our West African counterparts, and I think that also means that the way that we do things and some of our values are lost.
They change.
Or change, I say change, not lost, but changed absolutely compared to them. So I think this interplay is definitely being played out in what we're seeing. Because when I even go into the workplace, you see lots of West Africa. First and foremost, I see more high achieving black women and black men. First and foremost, and second of all, I definitely see more West Africans compared to Caribbeans. I hardly see any Caribbeans, if I'm honest. Most of my peers in the city and stuff are African, West African, right. Not black Caribbean, and I'm kind of like, well, where are we in it? But if I go to a gym, if I go to the gym, they're all in there. Everyone's a PT and a fitness coach. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry. I don't want to. I'm not saying every. But I'm just saying on the whole. I'm just saying, we're more likely to see that, and I'm like, you're in the wrong rooms. You're not in the right rooms. So that seems to be more like the more acceptable dumb thing. We're not cutting through because, and I don't know. I'd love to see the statistics in terms of how much young Caribbean kids there are actually growing up here, because I don't think compared to Windrush, I don't actually think they're coming over to the volume that they were.
They're usually right, yeah.
I do actually think that there are far more West Africans that are migrating over to the United Kingdom than there are Caribbean.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever known a family member to try and even get a visa, a holiday visa. It is very, very difficult, even coming from a Commonwealth country. So that's another thing that I always think to myself, there's not actually a lot of that general walking around Caribbean. I don't see a lot of them.
Yeah, because if I think back to when I was young, there's loads of times where you might hear your mum talking about, let me send for her.
Yeah.
You don't really hear that no more. Let me send for her. Let me get them. You have pat up a visa. My dad getting my uncle a visa. That's a typical thing I used to hear when I was growing up. Now that's not really.
You're not coming through them boys.
It's not really happening. Yeah. So that's true. That's true. But you said quite a few things there. So you said about the interracial dating. Yeah.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that I was going to say in regards to. I think that the reason that a lot of black boys are, from a university standpoint, and maybe not doing as well, or even post university, you don't seem to be in some of these rooms, and the consumerism aspect as well. And a lot of it is, I think, one is that mixture of the British and Caribbean culture, right? Black Caribbean men in the UK date outside our race more than any other ethnic minority, right? So with that, even statistically, I think, how do they gather this data? Because a lot of it is now mixed. There's now mixed Caribbean kids. There's now mixed British Caribbean kids. So there's a lot of that as well. And I think that culturally, I think black Caribbeans, we're so accepting of other cultures that we are being here. We kind of lost our own culture. We have Caribbean culture, yes, but it's not I don't think it's as strong as it used to be.
Yes.
And I think because we're so accepting of others, plus we're just here, plus we don't have a lot of them coming over anymore.
Yes.
We've adopted our own kind of Black British Caribbean culture, but it's diluted.
Yeah.
So the value system isn't there. And then we talk about the men and talk about interracial dating. And the next thing to talk about is obviously the fatherless home issue that we have in our community, which is something I talk about a lot, because I think that, it's around 60% of Black Caribbean boys and girls grow up in a low parent home, right? So over half the kids. And I think that, I don't have to get into the social media topics, but we have a lot of bashing men online here, which is completely fine. Yeah, you could do whatever you want. Yeah, but I do think that when people consume a lot of that content and stuff, it kind of downplays how important it is to have two parents in the home for a kid. I don't think people understand how much that affects, or how much it can affect children, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always say, it's not that growing up in a single parent household is gonna cause a child to fail, but there is a correlation. Correlation doesn't equate to causation, but if you look at the patterns, something's going on, because we have the highest rate of lone parent households, and then we also have black boys get excluded from school 2 times more than the national average. They fell more at the GCSE level compared to black Caribbean girls. Girls are outperforming boys. West African kids are outperforming boys. So we can't even just say it's a race thing. There's something happening culturally.
Yeah,
Us.
I agree. And as we always say, like, I'm going to take it one step further. We talk about the household. I'd say it take a community to raise a child. What I'm saying to you now is that I can call on 3-4 aunties right now. Right now. Your mom ain't going to pick up. My sisters are going to pick up. They ain't going to pick up. My aunt is going to pick up. My godmama's going to pick up. That's about 6-7 people that I can phone them right now. And that's what's missing, is that we don't know who our relatives are. A lot of us, as you said, due to the household dynamics, they don't know. And I think that plays a major factor, because kids, everyone, we need stability. And when you don't have stability, because what the stability gives you is someone that you can go to for discussion, for advice and guidance. Like, I'm very lucky that I have, an older sister, older brother, and I hold them in huge admiration. They both have families. My brother's married. Whenever I need anything, or if I need something, they're always there for me, and they'll always support me. They don't really, that means a lot to me. And I might not have been appreciative at the time, but I really appreciate that now, and shaped who I am. When I was younger, I went to watch Arsenal at Highbury, like, with my dad, like when Ashley Cole bent in that free kick against West Brom. I remember the night very clearly. I had experiences. You went on family holidays. So ultimately what I'm talking about here is being given love. So when we talk about what is, there's so much online about, status and money. What is going to define my success is being able to, that baton being able to be passed over to me, that when your parents, your brother, your sisters get ill, that I can be there, look after them. When my nieces, nephews, when future kids and family want guidance, I can be that resourceful man. I can put them in the right direction, because that's ultimately what I'm trying to achieve. And where did I learn that from? Home. That's where I learned that from. So when you talk to me about who my superheroes are, who my what's that word called, role models are, they're within my community. And most are glamorizing people outside of it because they don't have it at home.